The zookeepers had seen strange things before, but nothing like this. A German shepherd stood frozen before the lion's cage, tears welling in his eyes. He whined, pawing desperately at the bars. Then came the words no one expected. "Open the gate." What happened next left everyone in stunned silence. It was a quiet morning at the wildlife reserve. The sun filtered through the trees, casting golden light across the enclosures. Visitors hadn't yet arrived, and the paths were empty except for the occasional shuffle of a keeper making rounds. Mark, one of the senior keepers, was walking alongside Rex, a German shepherd who belonged to the reserve's security team. Rex was calm, disciplined, and unshakable. Nothing startled him. But as they passed the lion enclosure, something changed. Rex stopped dead in his tracks. His ears perked, his gaze locked on the massive lion sitting behind the bars. The lion, an imposing male named Aslan, stared back with unblinking amber eyes. At first, Mark thought Rex was just curious. But then, the dog began to whine. A soft, pitiful sound Mark had never heard from him before. He pawed at the ground, paced, then pressed himself close to the bars as if trying to get inside. Two other keepers approached, drawn by the unusual noise. "What's wrong with him?" one asked, frowning. But before anyone could answer, Rex let out a sound halfway between a cry and a bark, his eyes locked on Aslan. Something was happening, something none of them understood yet. Rex wouldn't move. Mark gave the leash a gentle tug, but the German shepherd planted his paws firmly in the dirt, his body tense, eyes never leaving the lion. His whines grew sharper, almost urgent, as if each sound carried a message no human could understand. The other keepers exchanged puzzled glances. "He's never acted like this before," muttered Claire, the head caretaker for the lions. "Usually, dogs avoid the big cats. They know better." But Rex didn't seem afraid. If anything, he seemed desperate. He pressed his nose between the bars, sniffing rapidly, tail stiff, body leaning forward like a coiled spring. When Mark tried again to lead him away, Rex twisted free of his grip and circled back to the same spot, scratching at the ground, barking once, then whimpering. Visitors had begun to arrive, and a few stopped to watch the strange scene. A child whispered, "Why is the dog crying?" But no one had an answer. Inside the enclosure, Aslan hadn't moved. His great golden head was low, eyes fixed on Rex. He wasn't baring his teeth or roaring. Instead, his gaze was steady, intense, almost pleading. Claire felt her stomach tighten. "This isn't normal," she said quietly. "We need to figure out what's going on." Mark knelt beside Rex, trying to calm him, but the dog kept glancing at the latch on the enclosure door. It was as if he knew something terrible, and time was running out. Aslan finally shifted. The massive lion rose to his feet with slow, deliberate movements, his golden mane catching the morning light. Every muscle in his body seemed heavy, as though he was carrying an unseen burden. His eyes never left Rex. The onlookers fell silent. Even the usual background noise of the zoo, the distant chatter of parrots, the rustle of leaves, seemed to fade. The two animals stood separated by cold metal bars, yet locked in some silent exchange that no human could break. Instead of roaring, or pacing like most lions confronted with a dog, Aslan stepped forward and lowered his head, pressing his nose as close to Rex as the cage allowed. His breath came in slow, uneven huffs. Rex responded instantly, pressing his own muzzle against the bars, whining softly. His tail was still, his body trembling with restrained energy. Claire's hands tightened around her clipboard. She had cared for Aslan for years, but she had never seen him act this way. Calm, focused, almost vulnerable. Mark glanced at her. "What do you think's going on?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice low. "But whatever it is, it's serious." Somewhere deep inside the enclosure, a shadow of danger seemed to stir. Claire paced in front of the enclosure, her mind racing. She had worked with lions for over a decade, and every instinct told her this was not aggression. It was something else entirely. Still, the idea forming in her mind felt reckless. Mark noticed the way she kept glancing at the gate. "Don't even think about it," he warned. "Opening that door could be a disaster." But Claire wasn't convinced. "Look at them," she said, gesturing toward Rex and Aslan. "This isn't a standoff, it's communication. Something's wrong with him, and that dog knows it." Another keeper, Tom, shook his head. Even if that's true, we can't risk it. Just then, Aslan let out a deep, guttural sound. Not a roar, but a low, aching rumble. It was the kind of noise that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Rex's whine grew frantic, paws clawing at the dirt in front of the latch. Claire's decision crystallized. If we wait, we might lose him, she said firmly. Mark's jaw tightened. Fine, but if this goes wrong, I know, she cut in. Open it. Now. Every heartbeat seemed louder as Tom reached for the heavy metal lock. The metallic click of the lock echoed in the tense air. The heavy gate creaked as it began to swing inward, each inch feeling like a dangerous gamble. Every keeper held their breath. Rex didn't hesitate. The moment the gap was wide enough, he darted inside, his paws kicking up dust as he rushed straight toward the lion. Gasps erupted from the small crowd that had gathered, some stepping back in fear of what might happen next. But Aslan didn't attack. Instead, he took a slow, shaky step forward, lowering himself onto his front legs until his massive head rested on the ground. Rex reached him and pressed his muzzle into the lion's mane, sniffing rapidly, tail low in concern. It was as if the big cat had been waiting for him. Aslan closed his eyes and let out a deep, rumbling breath, a sound that carried both relief and pain. Claire's heart pounded in her chest. She moved closer, her trained eyes scanning the lion. Then she saw it, a faint, almost hidden wound along his side, concealed by his thick fur. It wasn't fresh, but it looked infected. Rex whined and pawed gently at the spot, his gaze darting toward the keepers as if urging them to act. Mark swallowed hard. He wasn't trying to start a fight, he murmured. He was asking for help. In that moment, the danger didn't come from the lion's teeth, but from the time they might already be losing. The keepers moved quickly now. Claire signaled for the vet team, who rushed in with tranquilizer equipment and medical kits. Within minutes, Aslan was sedated and lying on his side, Rex sitting faithfully beside him like a silent guardian. As the vet parted the lion's golden fur, the truth came into view, a deep puncture wound, likely from a territorial fight days earlier. It had gone unnoticed under his mane, slowly festering until infection began to weaken him. Claire's throat tightened. If we hadn't opened that gate today, her voice trailed off, the weight of the near miss heavy in the air. Mark crouched beside Rex, stroking his neck. You knew, didn't you? He whispered. You could smell it. The vet looked up, astonished. Dogs have been known to detect infections and even disease, but this is extraordinary. Aslan was moved to the treatment area, Rex trotting alongside the stretcher. The bond between them was undeniable, something forged long before this day. Only later did Claire learn the connection. Years ago, when Rex was just a pup, he'd been raised near Aslan's enclosure. They had grown up watching each other from opposite sides of the bars. Now, one had saved the other. Weeks later, Aslan was back on his feet, strong, healthy, and with a new spark in his eyes. Rex still visited the enclosure daily, the two greeting each other with quiet familiarity. Visitors saw only a dog and a lion, but the keepers knew the truth. This was a friendship that had saved a life.